Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. This is Jim Feist in Las Vegas. It's 12 noon on Wednesday, the 11th of July, 2018. I guess you guys all knew that anyway. So anyway, Joe Mack is with me today. Joe is in New York. Hot and humid there, I guess. It's been a little hot and humid out here, too.
It is. Yeah, no, we're doing okay now. We had a stretch of hot, humid days. Then we had 2 or 3 of the nicest days you could ever have, and then we're back to hot and humid again. So it's a little sticky. Everyone's jumping in the pool and enjoying that summer. So everything's good.
Well, that's good. And as long as we're looking forward to a football season, we got a lot of stuff coming up, and we're going to talk a little bit about that right now. We're all excited about that. Of course, the baseball going into the All-Star game, and the World Cup is finishing up. So a lot of people are excited about those things. I personally am looking forward to football and finishing out, knock on wood, what's been a pretty good baseball season. Looking forward to finishing up the second half of that. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the AFC North. We all know who those teams are, led by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, and of course, holding up the bottom, the Cleveland Browns. I'm not too sure that the Cleveland Browns will be holding up the bottom of this division this year, Joe.
You know, we started talking about that last time, Jim, and we both agreed that the Browns, who have only won 1 game over the last 2 years, certainly look like they have much better talent than they've had in a while. I was saying to you last time that just checking out their depth chart, which I was looking at again today, I said, I'm impressed. I think this could be a 500 team. They get a couple of breaks here and there. I know we said the over-under was about 5.5, I think, or 5 for the Browns. And knee-jerk feeling would be to go over. But, if we want to start with them, and work our way up. And, you look at the Browns, they've got Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, with obviously they have the top draft pick in Baker Mayfield, and Drew Stanton is kind of their veteran in reserve in case the other guys don't pan out. But, so you've got some energy guys at quarterback here for the Browns, and nobody out there in your audience needs to be reminded how many quarterbacks they've gone through. Now, I don't know if any of these guys will be the savior. Obviously, they're looking at Mayfield as their franchise quarterbacks down the road. But the talent level is higher. The supporting cast guys for these quarterbacks is better. Let's not steer anybody wrong. They're not Super Bowl quality, but I'll tell you, look at it, running back, they got the kid from Georgia, Nick Chubb, who really was quite impressive in those playoff games last year. Josh Gordon, we know his history. Unfortunately, he's not been able to stay out of trouble. But I'll tell you what, Jim, if you tell me right now that Josh Gordon's going to stay away from trouble and he's going to play 15 or 16 games this year, I'm going to tell you he's going to be one of the top 2 or 3 receivers in all of football. He's a very productive guy when he does play. So the Browns have some hope. I did a little digging, though, to see what they look like spread-wise, and I'll tell you, go back the last 3 years, they're dismal. So, maybe they turn it around here, but they're 13, 34, and 1 against the spread the last 3 years. 13, 34, and 1. Obviously not very good. But you know what? You can look at them now and say the depth is better. Quarterbacking looks a little more alive. Defense, hey, if they get a pass rush from Myles Garrett and friends, this could be an 8-8 team. I would not be stunned.
Well, that would be remarkable for a team that's won 1 game out of 2 years. I look at the coaching staff to begin with. You got Hugh Jackson, been there since 2016. You got Todd Haley's coming over from Pittsburgh. He will be the offensive coordinator and calling the plays. And Greg Williams, we all remember him from the Saint days. And so, they have a lot of experience, the coaching positions, and that's very, very important, especially when you have a young squad that needs a lot of teaching and time to develop. So I'm optimistic about this team. I don't know that they get to 8, but I thought when they came out at 4.5, and I played this, but it's not that anymore. you're probably looking at 5.5 or 6, depending on where you go with what bookmaker has the line. But I think maybe a 7 is a reasonable number. 6 is a fallout number. So, if you can get 5.5, I would be betting it over. I don't know if you can get 5.5 anymore. Now, you talk about the spread over the last few years. It's been interesting. Almost all the sharps every week bet on Cleveland. And the reason they do is because it's a value bet. They see positive EV. It just hasn't worked out. But this is a team that's been in the hunt to win a game or to cover a spread many, many times over the last 2 years, especially last year. And they just turn the ball over, make a stupid mistake, and they not only lose the game, but they lose the spread. I think this year, with Tyrod Taylor at the quarterback position, and that he will not be turning the ball over as much as what they had the last couple of years. I think he's a guy that's pretty steady. He's not a great quarterback. He's not a Super Bowl quality quarterback. But he's steady, and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So I think that will change things for them. And I think that you're going to be looking at positive EV again with this team, and maybe it'll pan out. But
I agree. I just wanted to jump in there. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was thinking to myself, you just look at last year's Browns season where they did not win a game, and then you really dissect it, and you can find 7 to 10 games in there that they lost, like you said, either the side or the total or both. Well, I'm sorry, either straight up or against the spread or both, where it was incredible. I mean, the Jacksonville game, where late in the game, against the Browns, you thought the money was in your pocket. It wasn't. A lot of those games. And you know what, Jim? I mean, I know we're talking the Browns, and they're almost like an exception to the rule type of team in the NFL because they've been really like they've been really a disaster for years. But I've seen over the years a lot of teams that were, having a rough spread season where you say, wow, a bounce here, a bounce there. They're, 10-5-1 against the spread. Instead, they finished maybe, 4-12 or something. I think the Browns are going to get some of the bounces. I just think it's a matter of being due, and I do think some of the talent is going to rise up. You've got some guys playing third, fourth year. I'll tell you what, I'm glad they kept Hugh Jackson on. He's got to prove a little something this year. But anyway, I really think you're going to see in terms of spread stats, they're going to win a couple of these games. They're going to cover some of these games that maybe in the past they didn't. And I would not be shocked if they had a winning spread season this year. So maybe they'll reward some of their backers who got burnt in the past.
I'm sure there's a lot of friends of mine that would be very happy about that because they've gotten burned. But going on to what team do you want to look at next?
Well, how about the Cincinnati Bengals? I mean, it's certainly looking like their window of opportunity as the closer is closing. Let's face it, they had one of the most exciting wins last year in the last week of the season when they knocked the Ravens out of the playoffs, and it was a wonderful moment for the Bengals, even though they weren't going anywhere. But again, talk about digging a little deeper. This is a team that finished dead last in the NFL in offense, the 30th as a rushing team, 26th as a passing team. They have a long way to go. I'm reading things today that they are looking at having really a two-headed backfield where Joe Mixon, the rather troubled kid out of Oklahoma, is going to get the majority of the carries, and then Gio Bernard will get what's left. I think you're going to see both those guys have pretty productive seasons. So I want to see the Bengals show a little life, show a little imagination. Again, they had all those years of playoff appearances and never could win a single playoff game. I don't think they're a playoff team. I think they're probably a 7-9 team as they were a year ago. But I think you're going to see a little more punch from them. And as long as we're talking gambling, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some low totals for them, and early in the season maybe they go over. I think they're going to show a little bit more punch, a little more imagination. I could see some of their games where they're scoring in the mid-20s, where maybe last year they were scoring 17 points and so. So that's something to look for the Bengals. But again, it's starting to look to me like that window has shut. They're probably going to be kept out of the playoffs again. They really are kind of caught in between with Andy Dalton. He's not an old guy, so they're not putting him out the pasture. But let's face it, he's He's turned the ball over a ton the last couple of years when he's been healthy. I just want to see a little pop out of this team and a little bit of life out of them. And, I don't know when it's going to be that they can restore their power. I mean, I thought 3-4 years ago, Jim, that they were a Super Bowl team. They had a great defense, a very rugged physical defense. They had enough playmakers on offense. They just couldn't get it done. They couldn't get over the hump. They lost that playoff game to Pittsburgh where everything went out of control. I just want to see if the Bengals show a little life. And my early feel is that you're going to see some overs in the Bengals the first month or so of the season. I think they're going to let it out a little bit, let Dalton chuck it a little bit, let these running backs catch it as receivers. And so let's see if they show us a little gumption along the way here.
Well, what do you think of the defensive side of the ball? You got a new new coach, defensive coordinator coming in there, Terrell Austin. This is his first time there. What do you see on that side of the ball?
Well, I think they've lost a little bit of their physical nature. I mean, I really love their defensive line in recent years. They clogged things for enemy ground games. They really made things rough on opposing offenses. I think they've become a little less physical. I think Austin is going to try to bring that back. But they've also got to really specialize in forcing some turnovers. I don't know all the stats. I don't have it right in front of me. But to me, the Bengal defense has to put the team in their offense in a better field position. Got to get some sixes, things like that. I haven't seen enough of that. The Bengals have been solid defensively for a few years, but not spectacular. I don't think they're going to make any leap in that regard to be spectacular. And I would have almost liked to see him draft defense in the first round. They went with the Ohio State center, Billy Price, who everybody raves about and thinks he can be a Dave Remington, modern-day Dave Remington type, which would be wonderful. But I thought they should have gone a little defense. I just think they're going to probably be a run-of-the-mill average defense this year. Whereas, say, 2-3 years ago, Jim, I thought they were a top 5 defense all across, and yet, same old. They never, if they got the playoffs, they never won a game. So we'll see. I think they're going to be pretty mediocre on all counts. So, like I said, I could see the Browns being 8-8 if I was totally optimistic, and the Bengals being 7-9 or 6-10. That's how I'm looking at the two Ohio teams right now.
Well, I can't disagree with that. I think that maybe both of them could end up 7-9. But Marvin Lewis, this is kind of a Jeff Fisher type of situation. Here's a guy that hasn't lived up to expectations in a long time. He's been there since 2003. And a lot of people say, why has this guy not lost his job? He's totally underperformed.
He certainly has, and I'll tell you what, he's a gentleman of a coach, but I got the feeling last year that he was basically, at least in a couple of press conferences that I saw, both after games and those midweek press conferences, I thought Marvin was almost like challenging the Bengals management to, hey, if you want to do something, if you're not happy with me, get rid of me. And they still didn't get rid of him. So, I don't know. Maybe he has a secret lifetime contract. One of these years, the underperforming is going to really cost them. Again, I don't see them being a playoff team, but again, if they're 6-10 or 7-9, maybe he still keeps his job after this year. It's hard to figure. The Bengals obviously have a reputation for being a little on the cheap side, and who knows, maybe they just feel comfortable with him and they don't pay him a king's ransom, so they keep him there. But I tell you, I would be very frustrated if I was a Bengals fan. I would have expected a lot more from Marvin and the whole team in the last 6 to 7 years, and I'd be really disappointed that the team with as much more talent as they had from, say, 2010 on, Jim, they just, they haven't given the city and the football fans enough bang for their buck.
Oh, I agree with that. Now we go to Baltimore because we're going to leave the top team, predicted top team, Pittsburgh, for last. Baltimore Ravens, Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson, Harbaugh, head coach. You know the story. They got knocked off last year at the end. They bring in Martindale on defense. They got Maureen Wiggett, offensive coordinator, and John Harbaugh as the head coach. Been there since 2008. Flacco's going to be pressured a little bit this year because Lamar Jackson comes in. Yes, he's going to need a lot of training for the pro style and everything, but Flacco hasn't really performed very well since the Super Bowl when he was out, that Super Bowl run where he just went crazy for a bunch of games in a row. And but since then, they paid him big money, and he's really fallen on hard times production-wise. They changed. They've made a lot of changes in the off season. You think that they're going to pick up the pace and challenge for this division?
Well, I know one thing. I love Harbaugh as a coach. To me, he's always been in the top 5 of NFL head coaches. I have no qualms with his play calling or with his use of timeouts. His game management. I've always thought he was top line. To me, he was always a coach that was worth a couple of points. And I have to tell you, Jim, I'm one of these guys that I think most of the coaches in the league cost their team's points or at best or, break even. To me, Harbaugh's, unless he goes up against a Hall of Fame type coach, he's always worth a couple of points. That being said, Joe Flacco, believe it or not, is already 33 years old. And like you said, we've had now a half a dozen years or so since they've won that Super Bowl. He has been a below-average quarterback since then. Now, some of it is injury. Some of it is just getting banged around as an older quarterback. But they've got to be kind of greasing the skids for him eventually because I think they do want to see what this Louisville kid Jackson can do. Now, they talk about putting him in certain packages where he throws here or he throws out of the shotgun here or there. But I tell you what, I don't think they're going to keep give Flacco a long leash. I think if they're 7-8 games into this season and they're not producing and his stats and his quarterback rating is not good, I think you're going to see this kid play. I think just to give him a little boost, a little energy. I mean, look at the stats from last year. They were 29th in the league in passing. I mean, and let's face it, their best, most productive player and has been for 5-6 years now is their kicker, Justin Tucker. I mean, I read a stat today that he's had 33 field goals of over 50 yards in his career. I mean, the guy he's a Hall of Famer right now if he never played another game. But that's the problem with the Ravens. They have so many games where they need this guy to kick 4 field goals for them to win, or they need him to kick a 55-yarder or in the pouring rain to win. One of these years, even Justin Tucker is going to have some bumps and whatever. So, long story short, I've always liked the Ravens. I've always loved Harbaugh. I think at best they're a 500 team this year. Like you said, they made a lot of changes. They've got a lot of personnel moves. Their defense has taken a couple of steps back. I'm not wild about them. I mean, to me, if they hold their own in their division, meaning if they get one win out of Pittsburgh and they beat Cincinnati and Cleveland 3 out of 4, then maybe they could be a 10-win team and make the playoffs. I'm just not totally sold on them. And I used to be a big Flacco fan, but his best days seem to be behind him. And I think the first half of the season will be very interesting. If they are bouncing around, scoring 17, 20 points a game and losing, 23-20, 27-17, I think they're going to pull the rug out on Flacco, and we're going to see Jackson play a good amount the second half.
I totally agree. In the time we have remaining, I think we should spend it on Pittsburgh. They're the favorite. They bring in Randy Fitchner as the offensive coordinator. Haley moved on. And they've got, Tomlin at head coach since 2007. Keith Butler on defensive head coach. Fitchner is going to be calling the plays. That's interesting. You got Ben Roethlisberger, two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's been a champion throughout his life, but he is getting long in the tooth. He talked a little bit about retirement last year before the season. They sometimes a very disappointing team when they play down to their opponents. I mean, they just can look absolutely awful at times, and I put that on the head coach of not being able to get his team motivated at the right times, and to throw away games when you're a 7, 10, 14-point favorite and not even show up is pretty sad. So I put that on the head coach. What do you see with this team, with their backfield problems, with their the players that want bigger contracts, they refuse to sign, et cetera, et cetera? What are you thinking, Joe?
I I agree. I thought in the last 3 or 4 years that the Steelers every year went in as a solid Super Bowl possibility, always like a notch below New England. Let's face it, last year, I know they made it to the playoffs and whatnot. You know, they were 7-10 against the spread last year. And Jim, you hit it on the head. They played to the level of their competition way too much. They managed to win some of these games. They pull a rabbit out of the hat here and there. And, again, we talked about it a couple of weeks back in one of the podcasts. I mean, Roethlisberger, you can almost mark it down. He's going to miss 2 or 3 games every year for whatever injuries, you know, head or legs or whatever, knee, ankle. The guy gets hurt every year. I know he stands there and takes punishment, but he always misses some games. And just as we talked about with the Browns, how they seem to always find a way to lose, the Steelers find a lot of ways to win games. And one of these years, all that magic is not to be there. And the other thing is, which is very timely now, as we get ready for all these teams to go to camp. You know, we're about 2 weeks or so out from just about everyone going to camp. This Le'Veon Bell, I mean, every year, you know, holding out. Is he going to hold out? Is he have? You know, I tell you, I think that wears on a franchise. And I know he's supposedly a very popular player in the clubhouse. Not always the case with Antonio Brown, their great receiver, who I think rubs a lot of people in that clubhouse the wrong way. But Le'Veon Bell, I mean, he's a productive guy. You know, anybody in fantasy football knows he puts up great numbers. But you know what? Some of this stuff, when it's year in and year out, Roethlisberger talking about retirement now for the last 3, 4 years, Bell holding out or threatening it for the last 3 years, it starts to wear on these teams. And I don't think the Steelers are as deep as they would like to be. And I think some of this stuff, you know, some of this negative vibes and stuff, and as you said with Tomlin, and I used to be a big Tomlin fan, but again, you go back, I was at the only Super Bowl that he won. I was in Tampa that day when they came back and beat the Cardinals. And since then, he's been in the Super Bowl again, but never won it. And, you know, with all this talent, with Roethlisberger, Bell, Brown, the whole 9 yards, you know, why not? Why not more Super Bowl appearances? So I don't know if he's on the hot seat. I don't want to say that. I'm not one of these guys that likes to just say, oh, this guy's got to win it or else. I don't think the Steelers operate like that as an organization. But Tomlin has a lot of critics. You know, he's going to face a couple of big games this year where his team's going to have to show something. And I'm telling you, I don't see it. I mean, I think they're going to win the division, but almost, Jim, by default. I just don't think these other teams are going to have winning records. I could see Steelers being 10-6, but you might look at them and see that they're 6-10 against the spread when the regular season ends. They're not a dominant team, and I guess in a short way, in a nutshell, to me, they should dominate some of these opponents. They don't do it. They let teams hang around. They get sloppy. And again, a lot of that is on coaching. I would totally agree.
Yeah. Good recap, Joe. You know, we're running up against the time clock here. But what we're going to do another podcast, maybe a day or two, and just do some work on one of the divisions you want to talk about. And thanks for doing this today. I appreciate your time. Hold on, I'm going to sign this off, and I'll chat about something else with you. Hold on, Joe. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thank you very much.